February 2013. A 21-year-old Canadian student disappears in Los Angeles. 2 weeks later, police release an elevator video, and within hours, millions of people are convinced something supernatural happened. But tonight, we're going to separate what looks terrifying from what is actually true. Before we talk about the elevator, before the rooftop, before the theories, we need to talk about her. Her name was Elisa Lam, 21 years old, a university student from Vancouver. She loved writing. She kept a Tumblr blog. She wrote about books, music, and sometimes about feeling lost. She also wrote openly about living with bipolar disorder, about good days and difficult ones. She wasn't mysterious. She wasn't secretive. She was young, curious, traveling alone for the first time. In January 2013, she began a solo trip along the west coast of the United States. It was meant to be an adventure, and it ended in Los Angeles. She checked into the Cecil Hotel, downtown Los Angeles, an old building built in the 1920s. By 2013, it wasn't glamorous. It was cheap, worn down, a place travelers stayed when they needed something affordable. But the building carried history. Over the decades, there had been suicides, unexplained deaths, and even serial killers who once lived there. The internet would later focus on that, as if the building itself was cursed. But at the time Elisa checked in, it was simply a hotel. Nothing unusual was reported about her behavior. She initially shared a room with other guests. Later, she was moved to a private one. Everything appeared normal. Until January 31st. January 31st, 2013. Elisa stops contacting her family. For her, that wasn't normal. She had been checking in regularly, posting updates, staying connected, and then nothing. Her parents grow concerned. They contact the Los Angeles Police Department. A search begins. Officers check her room. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of violence, no struggle. Her belongings are still there, her laptop, her clothes. It doesn't look like someone ran. It looks like someone stepped out. Security footage is reviewed. Hotel staff are questioned. Guests are interviewed. No one reports seeing her leave the building. Days pass. Then more days. Nearly 2 weeks go by, and there is still no answer. Until police release a piece of footage that changes everything. Before we go any further, I want you to see it for yourself. No music, no commentary, no slow motion, just the original footage. Watch carefully and decide what you see. Now, this is the elevator video. Let's go through this carefully, second by second. She enters. She presses multiple buttons, not just one floor, several. Some people say this looks like panic. Others say it looks like she's trying to override something. But in older elevators, pressing multiple buttons doesn't change anything. It just lights them up. Nothing supernatural there. The doors don't close immediately. That's the part that unsettles people. But notice this. She steps partially outside the elevator. If a sensor is triggered, the doors won't close. Elevators are designed that way to prevent injuries. What looks like something holding the door could simply be her body in the sensor's range. Now watch her position. She moves to the corner, presses herself against the wall, almost hiding. That's the moment that feels disturbing, because it suggests she believes someone is there. But there's no confirmed figure outside the frame. No shadow, no reflection. Only her reaction. The hand movements. Her hands move in strange patterns, wide gestures, almost expressive. This is where the internet froze frames and built theories. But here's something important. Elisa had publicly written about living with bipolar disorder. During manic or psychotic episodes, movements can become exaggerated. Speech can appear directed at someone who isn't physically present. That possibility changes the interpretation completely. The timing. There are moments in the video that appear slightly slowed down. The frame rate isn't perfect. This creates an unnatural rhythm. And when motion doesn't look natural, our brains fill in the blanks. We assume threat. We assume danger, even when there's none visible. When you remove the music, the creepypasta edits, the conspiracy overlays, what remains is a young woman behaving unpredictably in an elevator. And unpredictability is often mistaken for evil. February 19th, 2013, nearly 3 weeks after Elisa disappeared. Guests at the hotel begin to complain. The water tastes strange. The pressure is low. Some say it looks darker than usual. Maintenance is sent to the roof. There are 4 large water tanks, industrial, metal, used to supply the building. One of them is opened. Inside, they find a body. It is Elisa Lam. She is fully clothed. Personal belongings are found with her. There are no signs of physical assault, no evidence of external trauma. The autopsy later rules the cause of death as accidental drowning. And that is where the mystery shifts. The rooftop wasn't part of the guest area. Many online claimed the door was locked, that an alarm would have gone off, that access was impossible. But investigators later clarified something important. There was external access, a fire escape, and reports suggest the alarm system was not consistently active. The water tank lid was not sealed shut. It was heavy, but movable. In other words, it was possible. Unlikely? Perhaps. Impossible? No. When the autopsy concluded accidental drowning, many people refused to accept it. Not because the evidence was weak, but because the story felt incomplete. The video was unsettling. The hotel had a dark reputation, and the idea of someone climbing into a water tank on a rooftop in the middle of the night felt impossible. The internet began filling in the blanks, and once that happens, facts become secondary. Some claimed the lid was too heavy. Others said the roof door was locked. Some believed someone must have helped her or forced her. But investigation reports did not confirm any physical evidence of assault, no defensive wounds, no external trauma. The conspiracy theories grew stronger because they were emotionally satisfying. A mysterious killer is easier to process than a tragic accident. And the elevator footage became the emotional anchor. People didn't want to reinterpret it. They wanted it to mean something darker. But feeling disturbed is not the same as evidence. There is another part of this story that often gets overlooked. Elisa had publicly written about living with bipolar disorder. She spoke about it openly, on her blog, in her personal reflections. She described periods of feeling energized, restless, overwhelmed by thoughts, and other times, deep depression. Medical reports later indicated that her prescribed medication levels were inconsistent. That does not mean she intended harm, and it does not mean she fully understood what was happening. But in severe manic or psychotic episodes, behavior can become unpredictable. People may experience paranoia, disorientation, a sense that someone is nearby when no one is there. Suddenly, the elevator footage looks different. Not supernatural, not cinematic, just a young woman, possibly in distress. And that possibility changes everything. Elisa Lam's death was ruled an accident. The investigation found no confirmed evidence of foul play. And yet, for many people, the case still feels unfinished. Maybe it's the setting, an old hotel, a city at night. Maybe it's the footage, a young woman in an elevator, looking into a hallway we cannot see. Or maybe it's something deeper. We struggle to accept randomness. We search for patterns, for villains, for hidden meaning. But sometimes, tragedy doesn't arrive with a clear explanation. Sometimes it leaves us with discomfort instead of closure. What happened on that rooftop may never feel fully understood, not because the facts are missing, but because the story doesn't fit the shape we expected. And maybe that is why this case still lingers. Not as a ghost story, not as a conspiracy, but as a reminder of how fragile perception can be, and how easily mystery can be born from fear. Sometimes, the most unsettling answer is the ordinary one.